Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by making a disclaimer. Despite Machiavelli being in the title of this talk, this will not be a tutorial on how to achieve and maintain power by abandoning morals. Instead, I will attempt to make some of his principles more digestible for a modern audience, and recommend reading his most famous work, obviously. Just so we're all on the same page, Machiavelli was an Italian diplomat in the 15th century. After being fired, arrested, and tortured, he wrote The Prince, a guidebook on how to be a ruler. It goes through historical examples of political power being lost and gained, and its main premise is that a leader should not be constricted by Christian ethics. You're probably all familiar with the saying, "The ends justify the means." While he didn't explicitly say that, it is an overarching theme in The Prince. Another gem of a quote, just to give you a better idea of the vibe of the book, is, "You must either pamper people or destroy them." Oof. Yeah. Now, I am aware that none of us are 15th century rulers, and I am also aware that that guy believes cutting people to pieces in order to prove a point is a boss move. So we should not take his advice at face value. However, if The Prince were published nowadays, it would definitely fall under the how to be an alpha male genre. I mean, come on. It's better to act and repent than not to act and regret. That's the exact type of quote you'd see on an Instagram account called @EntrepreneurMindsetDaily. Gary Vee could never, and historical context backs this up. Unemployed, Machiavelli had initially dedicated The Prince to Giuliano de' Medici, the man in charge of Florence, and geared the writing towards him because he was often described as weak and effeminate. So, essentially, he thought Giuliano was too much of a beta, and that reading The Prince would teach him how to be an alpha, and hopefully hire Machiavelli so he can continue imparting his wisdom and not be broke. But Thea, you might be thinking, most of what alpha male influencers say is rubbish and misogynistic. That is correct. My friend watches alpha male podcasts, and I once asked him why he, a highly intelligent individual, consumes the lowest form of media. He responded that he extracts whatever advice is actually useful and is entertained by the audacity of the podcaster. And that is exactly what I propose the modern reader should do with The Prince. Learn whatever is to be learned, enjoy the interesting historical examples, and laugh at the dramatic and self-important tone of this book. If you, A, are in a leadership position, B, are a bit of a doormat and wish to change that, or C, want a more pragmatic approach to life, you would benefit from some Machiavellian concepts. Now, let's get into them, shall we? If you've been recently thrust into a leadership position and aren't sure you're up for it, don't worry. Machiavelli is a strong advocate for fake it till you make it. According to him, pretending is enough, since everyone sees what you seem to be and few have experience of who you really are. Which is fair enough, since people who don't know you on a deeper personal level will just judge you based on rumors and vibes. As Machiavelli said, the crowd is won over by appearances and final results. Now, this might sound like deceit to you, but think of it this way. It doesn't matter who you truly are or whether you had uncertainties along the way, as long as eventually you get the right things done. Now, we can't talk about leadership without bringing up the classic, if you have to choose, it's much safer to be feared than loved. Edgy, I know, but there is truth to it. Machiavelli's explanation for this stance is that men are less worried about letting down someone who has made himself loved than someone who makes himself feared. Which makes sense. I mean, if a teacher tells a student to stop vaping in the bathroom, they don't listen to it because they love the teacher. They listen to it because they don't want to get suspended. I recently gotten into a debate with someone over this quote, and they refused to accept that it's irrational to assume people will always love you. So fear has to be a motivator at times. And that is a pretty hard pill to swallow if you're the type that needs to please everyone, or if you're a bit of a doormat. Because people won't always like you. And if you're a leader, you have to learn to accept that. In a workplace, love for their jobs is what will get employees to take risks, explore possibilities, discuss alternatives. Fear of losing their jobs is what will get them to submit everything on time and actually get the work done. So, both are important, but a bit of fear is necessary. Enough hypothetical situations, though. Here's an example in which Machiavellianism worked for me. I was invited to lead a team of university students to make a short political animated film for a EU cultural event. The coordinator told me they'd been struggling to settle on one idea, and many would simply not show up or were hungover or all university student stuff. So production was delayed by a week. So I emailed all the students saying that if they didn't show up the next day, they wouldn't be credited for the video. All but one person arrived. Then I told them if we didn't write up a script to send to the animators by the end of the day, I'd find another team to replace them. A bit mean, but guess what? We came up with an amazing concept, and it was done and dusted by the afternoon. Everyone was thrilled by the outcome. So why did this work? Why did a group of adults listen to what a random teenager had to say? Because of fear. They feared getting kicked off the project, so they mobilized themselves. They loved the project, but they just needed a little push. Now, I was slightly intimidated by them, so my first instinct was to be overly nice. But I reminded myself that I was in charge. You can't please everyone, so focus your energy on the goal. If you're in a position of authority, they will be compelled to listen to you anyway, and they will expect you to be slightly mean. Okay, I will stop now because I feel myself starting to sound like an alpha male podcaster, and I don't want that for myself. Like, I know Machiavelli did it, but I don't want that for myself. So let's just explore the other pearls of wisdom that Machiavelli has to offer. Has your friend group ever been torn apart because of a fight, and you don't know what to do? Well, Machiavelli firmly believes you have to pick a side, because if you don't, both parties will harbor resentment towards you. He says, a winner doesn't want half-hearted friends who don't help him in a crisis. And the loser will have nothing to do with you, since you didn't choose to fight alongside him and share his fate. But Thea, you might say, this quote is about war, not petty arguments. Perhaps, but when drama gets messy, don't tell me it does not feel like war at times. Machiavelli also wants you to be decisive. It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret. Better to mess up than miss opportunities. Based on that quote, he was not only an alpha male influencer, but also a cheap motivational guru. Now, I am not a fan of self-help books. In fact, personally, I loathe them. But keep this in mind, historical self-help books, beautiful. No corporate nonfiction will ever beat The Art of War, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or, of course, The Prince. So, before you dismiss Machiavelli as myopic, irrelevant, or overrated, remember, he's just an alpha male, here to give you crazy, but slightly good advice. And if reading The Prince for the fun of it isn't enough of a reason, just know that it can provide insights into how a politician might think. I mean, never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception, is a quote from that book. And Italian fascist leader Mussolini did say it was a useful tool to him. Enlightenment thinker Rousseau even suggested The Prince was written to teach the people to be free by showing them royal power was no more than subterfuge. That is pretty dramatic, and whether or not that was the goal intended, the message does come across slightly given his emphasis on appearances. Either way, if you find yourself unsure of your leadership capabilities or scared of stepping on other people's toes, do not buy a self-help book. Read The Prince, because that way you will A, seem more educated, B, learn how to be a Machiavellian baddie, and C, be able to judge all the rulers he used as examples in the book and tell yourself you would have done a much better job than them. Thank you.